Well, time for some people to not agree with me. Hello everyone and welcome back to Did You Know Doju, and it is that time again. It is time for a album review, probably the album review of this century, Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. Now if you don't already know who Kendrick Lamar is, you've probably been living under a rock for the past 10, 15 years. Okay, that's another exaggeration. For the past 5 years. Now, if you don't know who he is, Kendrick Lamar is a West Coast rapper. He is from Compton, California, where many greats such as Ice Cube and Dr. Dre are from, who also is in coalition with Dr. Dre, as he worked with him a lot on his prior album, Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. Now, Kendrick Lamar obviously has a lot under his belt, such as his album Section 80 and also Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, not to mention verses such on like songs like Pusha T's Nostalgia, and one of the verses that has rocked this hip-hop world, Control, where he basically just, it's not a diss record, but he kind of just calls out the state of hip-hop as it is, and basically states that there's a lack of competition going on right now. And through this, he has become one of the biggest names in hip-hop to date. Now, quick story before we get into this, I actually was not that big of a Kendrick Lamar fan until recently, in all honesty, because I heard the songs off of Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, but I didn't find the coalition. And then one day I decided to finally just listen to Good Kid, M.A.A.d City all the way through. And once I did, I saw the beauty and brilliance that was in this album. It was him basically just telling a story about him or any other youth basically who had lived in Compton during that time, kind of hanging out with their friends, getting into the wrong stuff, but then coming to realize that this isn't the type of life that he wanted, and he wants to achieve his dreams, which I thought was a very well told story. Now, with that being said, we come into his third project, To Pimp a Butterfly, and honestly, I decided to go into this with no expectations, which kind of sounds crazy for some people because this is kind of like the big thing that everyone was expecting, having high expectations for, simply for the fact that it was Kendrick Lamar, simply for the fact that it had been 2 years since he had been produced, since he had made a full project. So expectations were high, but I knew if I went into this album with very high expectations, I would be disappointed. So I went into it expecting nothing. And with that being said, I was actually thoroughly impressed by this album. Now, the album starts off with Wesley's Theory, a song that, honestly, I'm not going to be 100% honest with you. I'm not 100% sure of the full meaning, but it's kind of like Kendrick telling different, like different scenarios through it, kind of talking about like how fame will make you do these types of things. And he also talks about a government perspective when he talks about like Uncle Sam, the type of things that he wants for money and things like that. But honestly, it wasn't one of my favorite, most standout tracks. It's definitely something I would say you listen to, but it can definitely throw you off for the beginning because there's a lot of jazz, funk influence into it. And it's definitely very interesting to hear. But trust me, if you hear it multiple times, you'll definitely start to love it. It might not be your favorite track, but you will see its importance in here. And from here we go on to the track called For Free, which is basically Kendrick rapping over this freeform acid jazz type of production, being able to show you how well he can adapt to any type of rhythm that he's on. And to me, that was just so amazing. But not only was it amazing to show that he was able to spit on this, it was also amazing to see that he was able to still deliver a message on this as well. Basically talking just about how things aren't free, you know, like him being him is not free, and at the same time, you know, the things about this industry is not free as well. I mean, he talks about it, there's one line that he says on there, he says, I want 40 acres and a mule, not 40 ounce and a pit bull. Basically dissing a black stereotype, talking about how he wants more than what everyone else has. And to me, I just thought, wow, not only were you able to show how well you can spit, but you were also able to deliver a meaningful message behind it. Amazing. So from there, we go on to the track King Kunta. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, when I first heard this, I was just like, is he trying to be James Brown on this? And I was just kind of thinking to myself like, oh goodness, I don't know what's gonna happen with this album, because I had heard this song before the album had came out, and so I was just kind of like, I guess this is gonna be a very interesting album to see. But after listening to it multiple times, it's actually very clever and a very catchy song. I mean, it honestly reminds me of some stuff DJ Quick would be doing, or still once again that James Brown influence that is over it. And I just thought it was very amazing. I mean, he says in the song, you know, referencing himself to being King Kunta, and that, you know, he's basically at the top, he's running ahead of everyone, and now everyone's trying to cut the legs off of him. You know, if you've seen Roots, then you obviously know that's a reference to the fact that Kunta Kinte gets his foot cut off and then he's not able to run anymore. So once again, awesome. I mean, just sure, it may not be, you know, lyric. I can't say it's not lyrical. It may not be super good flow-wise, as far as a rapping sense is concerned. Let me rephrase that, because I don't want you to get the idea that like it's not good, his flow is not good, but it's not a rap flow. If you're looking for a rap song on there, then you're not gonna be very much happy. But if you're just listening to a song, if you're just looking for a song, then this, my friend, is a very catchy and good song. It is just amazing. And from there, we move on to the song Institutionalized. No, not going by Suicidal Tendencies, which I was kind of thinking about while this was coming on. But it's a song basically talking about, in the simplest of terms, you can take the boy out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the boy. And I just thought, you know, yes, this is a very timely told message, told in and out, but I felt the way Kendrick did it on this was very amazing. I mean, the way he tells the story is kind of like, now that he's big, he decided to take some of his friends with him to the BET Awards. And with doing this, like, most of these people, like, even though they were in this better environment, like, the things that they were thinking about were still trying to, now that they see all these people with lots of things, that they want to be able to take it from them and be like, basically doing hood stuff while they're at the BET Awards. And, you know, just because you take them out of this environment doesn't mean that you've taken their mindset out. And it makes it even better with the chorus that he says, which is, excuse my French, but he kind of goes to what his grandma used to say, talking about shit don't change until you get up and wash your ass. And I just thought, wow, dude. It kind of brought back memories for me because of the fact that it made me think about, what was it called? Just stuff that my grandparents and my mother says, kind of like stuff like piss or get off the pot. Basically, if you're not going to do anything, then move on. Things like that. And then just a whole bunch of other stuff. So not only was it a very deep message to me, but it was also done very well, and it kind of brought back memories to me of things that I had heard before. And then after that, he goes into a song talking about, called These Walls. And it's so crazy because he's talking about the walls down there for women, but it's not just a song about that. What he's talking about, even the chorus, it says that these walls can talk. He's talking about the fact that while this is happening, there's also, you know, her man who's in jail behind prison walls. And I just thought, once again, amazing. This is amazing. The instrumental was amazing, everything about it. But not only to this kind of starts off where he's going throughout the whole album, where he's reading this poem. But I'll get to that about more so around the end, because that's when it really starts to make sense. So we go on into the next song, You. And if you already know, before this, he has a single out called I, which is all about self-love, self-promotion. Not self-promotion, that sounds a little, but it's all about self-love and loving yourself. But then you get to the song called You, where it's kind of just him derailing himself, just talking about, you know, loving you is complicated. That's basically the chorus of the first part. And then he's just talking about how it's hard to love himself, even though with all these things going on. And then not only does it start off with that, but then it goes over into a beat change, and then it is raw emotion into this song. It is basically, I don't think it's him actually talking to himself. I think it's more so supposed to be the angle of someone else talking to him. And you can just tell whoever this person is talking to him is just upset. They are drunk and clinging to the bottle, because while he is doing the song, you can hear the sounds of the alcohol sloshing, you can hear the sounds of the bottle clinking, the person's lips being on it. I mean, it's so amazingly done so amazingly well. And it's just painting this picture for you of this person just hitting rock bottom, but basically just going at him, telling them about how they feel, what they don't appreciate about what he's doing now that he's big and things like that. It's just it's an amazing track. If you're not liking my if you're not liking my emotion about this album already, you might want to just click off on the video because it's about to get way bigger than that. And there from you, we go on to the track Alright, which honestly probably has one of the catchiest beats on here, but it's just kind of a very simple song talking about, even though there are all these things going on, we're gonna be alright. He even says, as long as God's got us, then we're gonna be alright. And it's very deep in its meaning. It's just kind of like one of those songs that you're just like, things are gonna be good. We as a people, we're all just gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be good. Which is kind of funny to me that he kind of threw this in the middle because the fact that, album's not over yet, because like there's so much more deeper messages it goes into, but that doesn't take away my love for the song. And so from there, we go into another interlude called, instead of being for free this time, actually being for sale. And once again, Kendrick delivers on this song lyrically because he talks about one of the biggest things that are honestly for sale, his soul. And he basically introduces this character, Lucy, which if you don't know is supposed to be Lucifer. And from here he just goes on basically playing the role, I guess you could say, of Lucy, just kind of like telling him, I see you out here, I see what you're doing, eventually you're gonna come looking for me like all the other rappers do, like I made all these other things happen for these rappers, especially when they got bored, when people were no longer looking for them, and I thought it was just so amazing how he was able to say that. And then it was so funny because the intro in the beginning, the intro part in the beginning, he talks about, like, if you're scared, then you should go to church, but he says, even then, remember, he knows the Bible as well. And I was just like, before the track even got started, I was just like, this is a wrap. I already know this is gonna be another good track. And of course, it's once again another amazing track on this album. I'm not gonna give my final verdict yet, not yet. Wait. So from there, once again, he's going through the poem, and in this part, he says, he was kind of like running around looking for stuff until he came home, and then from there he goes on to the track Mama, which I thought was once again another awesome track. Yeah. And like he kind of just talked about being back, but like not only does he talk about that, he talks about how he knows this, he knows that, he knows hood things, he knows politics, he knows, how the corporate governments work and all this stuff. But then after all that, he just says, what, I don't know anything. I'm just like everyone else, I may claim that I know all this stuff, but I'm just like everybody else, I only know so much. There's only so much I can do. And I thought, once again, what a great way to make yourself seem relatable. Like, yeah, you may know about all this stuff, but still, you're just another person, And Kendrick, once again, did a good job on that track with his lyricism and how he just takes you through all this over these beats. It's amazing. And so from there, we move on to the next track, which is probably my favorite track on this whole album, called Hood Politics. And this track is just, it's a whole roll of amazingness in one. I mean, the chorus on this, even though as corny as it is, it is still enjoyable, because once again, it took me back to high school, because I would hear people like saying stuff like this, and like it's just kind of him like, the best way I can explain it to you is just like some type of hood person just basically trash on everything. Says, I've been A1 since day one, boo boo. What did he say? Then he said, your homeboy in the block that you're from, boo boo. It's just one of those funny things that you hear, and it just took me back. But not only is the hook very interesting on this, he is once again delivering on this track. Later on, he says, from Compton to Congress, things haven't changed. He just says, just a new batch of Democrats and Republicans, red state versus blue state, which one are you governing? And I was just like, but he didn't stop there. No, he didn't stop there. He goes on to say, critics nowadays are, talking about who's this and who's that, who's good and who's whack, who's white and who's black. And he said, critics are saying, they miss days when hip hop was about rapping. But then he says, if you really did, then Killer Mike would be platinum. And once again, I was done. Dude is spitting on this track. This track was amazing. Sorry about that. Let my emotions take over for a minute. But if you don't know who Killer Mike is, if you don't know who Killer Mike is, he's probably one of the most prominent MCs. He's a spitter at heart. He's also the second half of Run the Jewels, which is him and LP. So the fact that he said that, you know, if you really cared about rap in this state and people actually rapping, then Killer Mike would be on top right now. What more can I say, man? Hood Politics was my favorite song, without a doubt. So then we move on to the next song, How Much a Dollar Costs. And this is honestly a very deep and hard-hitting track because it's kind of talking about, I don't know if it's talking him, Kendrick talking as himself or as a character, but he's basically, you know, at the gas station pumping his gas, and then, you know, a transient, a vagabond, if you will, comes up to him and asks him for money. And then he's going on talking about, you know, oh, I've seen your types of tricks before, I know what's really going on, you know, you're just another person out here, you know, it's not my fault you're homeless, this and that. And then, you know, he goes on to say, you know, I need all of this, you know, I need all of what's mine, you know, because this is mine, I worked for it, and this and that. And then so the transient, as it seems, goes through and he's just talking about, you know, he's just talking about, well, you know, I've seen all this and that. But the main point it comes to at the end is saying, you know, you should be, he starts quoting Bible scriptures to him and, you know, telling him that, you know, you need to care for all people. And then, of course, I kind of saw this coming once again. He basically just lets him know that, you know, the person you've been talking to right now is God. And I was just like, what more do I have to tell you? Deep lyrics, showing you how much does $8 really cost? Is it worth your eternal soul to just give up $8, $1? Deep lyricism. This is lyricism at its best. Sorry, once again, let that emotion take over me. We get back here. But from here we go on to the next song called Complexion. And it's very simple in its meaning. It's very straightforward. There's no really deeper, well, it's deep, but it's not like, you know, it's a song you can take for face value. It's basically talking about love who you are, love your complexion, love yourself no matter what skin color you are, black, white, light skin, dark skin, we're all the same. Just love yourself, and that's all that really matters. And the person who really surprised me on this, like, Kendrick's part was so short, but when Rhapsody came on, who I had actually never heard of until this, showed me very good lyricism. Like, I was just like blown away by this person, by her verse, and I was just like, once again, perfection. This was perfection on a track. But from there we move on to the song Black in the Berry, and this had come out back in sometime in February, my birth month. But anyway, it came out sometime in February, and I had heard it and was already very impressed and made me very excited to see what that one was going to be about. But if you kind of based your listening experience of what you're going to hear off Black in the Berry, then once again might have been disappointed, because the track Black in the Berry, it's basically Kendrick. Once again, I feel he's playing the role of someone else, not necessarily himself. But he just talks about, you know, the state of America and race at this point. And he's basically just talking about, you know, like, kind of just like, I guess you could say oppression from the government and people around them, police enforcement, you know, saying that, you know, you make me feel that I'm not worth it. You make me feel like my people aren't worth anything to this country. And then all the way through this track, he says all this stuff, but then he flips it up right at the end, and he says, you know, why did I weep when Trayvon Martin was in the street? When gang begging makes me kill a person blacker than me. And I just thought about it. I was just like, blown. He's basically saying, you know, yes, it's true. You know, these things are happening. But how am I supposed to be able to complain? How are we as people supposed to be complaining about all this stuff that's happening on when, you know, some of us don't even respect ourselves and aren't even helping the cause out by killing our own people? And I just thought, you know, once again, not afraid to say what is on his mind. He was able to deliver that in such a well manner and let everyone know, you know, I'm not saying that this is right. I'm not saying that any of it is right. I'm saying that we gotta build ourselves up. because you know we're out here fighting this war, but we're also fighting ourselves back at home, which makes no sense. And I just thought, Kendrick, you did an awesome job on that track. So from here, move on to the last two tracks. Which I actually heard before this, and honestly, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't in love with it. It didn't make me excited to hear this. But once I heard this version, I was just like, yes, this is good. Because what I guess he did is he actually made it a live version, and I don't know, there's something I was feeling a little more when I heard it this time around. I was like, yes, this is what a track I like to hear. But not only did he not really finish the track, there goes on to be this point in the track where I'm guessing there's a fight going on in the crowd, and you know, Kendrick's basically telling you know, like, no, this isn't gonna happen on my time. And then he goes up to bring, you know, how many black people have we lost this year alone, and then he's saying, you know, there's no time to be wasting time right now. And so he goes on into this spoken word kind of a cappella thing, and he basically brings up the concept of niggas, which if you watch my TMI video, I already explained it, but it's kind of the thought of being black kings, black emperors, black rulers. And to me, it was so funny because just the day before I even heard this album, I was already thinking about that concept in my head, the concept of niggas. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, like, wow, like we really need to start viewing ourselves as that rather than the other N word. And then I was also thinking about Capital Steez and how he made that track and how it was so amazing. Then to the next day, hear Kendrick talking about it, and I'm just like, was this guy reading my mind before I even was ready to review this album? Because it's exactly what I was talking about, you know, talking about to myself. So I don't know, it's just amazing to me that the day before I was even listening to this album, I had heard that. It was very empowering to hear. So from here, we move on to the track Mortal Man. And this track was amazing. I mean, it's just him going through talking about, you know, how things are now, things might change, and because, you know, he's changing himself. He's becoming he's making stuff for him. And it's so very prominent when he says the chorus, when he says, you know, when shit hits the fan, are you still a fan? When things go wrong, when things aren't looking to be right, are you still going to be there to back him up? Are you still going to be able to call yourself a fan? And not only did he do this, but he brought up probably one of the best examples out there. He brought up the fact about Michael Jackson. He said it. He said, Mike, he just brought it up. He's just like, he gave us Billie Jean, but you're going to say he touched those kids? I mean, it was... Kendrick, you did it, my friend. But not only did he deliver that with this song, he goes on into the end of the track, the end of this whole track. He goes on into... Skip ahead, I'm going to have a little thing here for you to skip ahead to. Spoiler alert if you haven't listened to the album yet and want this, because this part was sent chills down my spine. But if you want it to still be a surprise and you want to feel it when you hear it, there's a time marker right here where you can go to listen past this part. So yeah. So at the end of it, he brings up none other than, well, okay, first off, he was basically finishing off his poem that he had been going through, basically playing snippets of it throughout the whole album. And then he gets to the end and he's talking to none other than the late, great Tupac Shakur. And my chills were sent down my spine when I heard this part, because I wasn't expecting it. As much as I should have been expecting it to happen, I didn't expect it at all. And then the way it was done, he took an interview that Pac had done sometime in the 90s, and he was basically just asking him questions and talking back and forth to him. And I thought it was so well done, so amazingly done. And I just was like, I was just blown away by just how it was done. Kendrick made an amazing album and it was able to show off what he could do. And for a track by track run through that you just saw me do, there was no track on this album that I felt was throwaway, which is going to lead me into my next topic. The point I was going, you already see me run down through this track by track, so obviously I had nothing bad to say about this album. So of course, with my rate of check it or check it out. If you're not checking this album out, then I don't know what's wrong with you. And a topic that I want to address while I was making this video, since this is my video, I want to talk about kind of how people are calling this album trash. And honestly, I feel if you're going into this album looking for flashy beats, flashy bump in the trunk type of stuff, bump in the whip type of stuff, then you're looking for the wrong album. Because honestly, I feel this album, I'm gonna say it, it was better than Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. I said it. I really feel that way. Because with Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, I felt Kendrick, although he did make the album that he wanted to make, I felt he sacrificed just a bit for mainstream value. I mean, with songs like Swimming Pools, for example, he talks like, people didn't even know that song was about anti-drinking. Why? Because they're playing it in clubs, they're playing it at parties and stuff like that when people are drinking. But if you pay attention to the song, he's actually talking about how drinking is a bad thing and how it's stupid how people are doing stuff like this. And to me, I was just like that was one of the reasons I wasn't even that into him at first, because I didn't even catch it at first. But then it's the type of thing that I feel like on Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, I even felt there were some throwaway tracks. I mean, once again, Swimming Pools, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't something that I revisit often. Don't Kill My Vibe, once again, a track that I wouldn't revisit that often. Backseat Freestyle, a song I wouldn't revisit that often. But with this I feel that he made exactly what he wanted to make. He made a deep, lyrical, conceptual album, and he did it very well. And you know, some people may complain like, oh, you're just a Kendrick fan, you're just a Kendrick stan. And honestly, I'm not. I didn't even like the guy until like last year. There you go. I didn't care for his stuff until like last year, and now that I've heard this, you know what? I definitely say he is deserving of the title that people are giving him, because he showed his worth on this album. He showed his worth. And it kind of made me think about another thing that, you know, some people are also saying, you know, like, oh, Kendrick's basically just dissing every other race in this. And if that's what you see, then once again, there's a problem with you. I think Anthony Fantano, he said it best when I was watching his review of this today, when he said,
give these topics a lot of care. He's not delivering some kind of reblogged 140 character bumper sticker philosophy on this album. If you listen to these songs and all you get from them is, Kendrick's just bitching about being black in America, Kendrick thinks white people suck, well, that's really kind of a basic point of view. And not because Kendrick's being basic, because you're being basic. So get off that and really listen to what he's trying to say on this record.
And that's honestly how I feel. You know, if you don't see the brilliance in this, then I don't think it's Kendrick's fault. I'm sorry to say, it's not his fault. It might be yours, because you're not opening up your mind. Now, I'll say this much. If you're not a fan of hip-hop, then this probably won't change your mind. I really don't feel that. But if you're a fan, if you want to call yourself a fan of hip-hop and a fan of good music overall, then you will love this, and I definitely suggest that you check it out. Sorry if this was long and drawn out, but there's a lot of emotions to put out about this album that I was really enjoying. Of course, I'm Doji. Now you know. Thanks so much for watching. Kendrick Lamar, you did an amazing job.